How could you say that? That's my favorite font. Charge for it. The knowledge is there. Okay, the knowledge is there. Let that design go, girl. Ask the person in front of you rather than asking your computer. It's better that someone says, I don't like this, I like this.
Lisa Patz.
Let me give it to my you got that good.
It's your good sis Lisa Pat, and we are back with another video today. This video is going to be about what I wish I knew before I became a graphic designer. There's things that I wish that I had known. This is not going to be something that's negative. It's just going to be something that's like reflective and very much real life, what I'm going through in this moment. I literally was just working and I was like, damn, someone should have told me this. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new, thank you so much for coming back. Make sure that you are subscribing to my channel down below. It helps me so much to build this community. As a graphic designer, your role is most important at the end of the project. The reason why I say it's most important at the end of the project is because that's when all of the files are actually being delivered. The first time this happened, I was really stressed and I was like, bro, like why is there so much more to, like, why do I feel like there's so much more to do? And it's because there is. So it's just about preparing yourself for that. When it comes to the end of that project, just remember that you do have to bring that stuff to life. You have to bring it to that next phase. You know, if you said that it's going to work on mobile, but it's also going to work on laptop and it's also going to work on tablet, you need to create that. You have to create those 3 different versions. Majority of the time, it's probably going to be you as like the last person on the project. You know, even when there's refinements that come through or revisions that come after the project has ended, you are 9 times out of 10 going to be that last person on the project, which is not, again, a bad thing, but I think it's just about preparing yourself. You know, you can also look at it as a way to take ownership and as a way to take advantage of being the only person on something and being able to deliver it on time and do it well. I could talk more in depth about that if you guys want, especially when it comes to delivering files. Like, for some reason, like, people just kind of forget that, how am I actually going to receive this at the end? You know, it's all good and well me doing these designs for you, but at the end of this, like, do I want it where I can still edit it? Because that's a different price. But we'll talk about that in another video. Following on from that, it's just not at the forefront of your mind when you're thinking about becoming a designer. Is the idea of revisions, is the idea of doing multiple rounds of things, is the idea that the first design 9 times out of 10 is not going to be the design that you go for. It's just not, babe. And that's design for you. It's all about process and experimenting. Especially when you work with a client, you need to prepare for your first round to potentially not be what they're looking for. When you're invoicing people, when you're, you know, talking to clients about how you work, this should be part of it. Having at least 2 revisions, and yes, charge for those revisions. I'm not saying don't charge for this stuff. Charge for it. Another conversation that we can have, especially about like freelancing as a designer. So an example of this would be, say for example, you've got this company and their name is Purple, and they want to see how their word mark could look, and the word mark is just the name of the brand written out. This is the first one that you come with. You come with this like really bold, impactful sans serif font, and they say, I really would like to see this look a bit more serious. What would that look like in a different font? So you show them examples of a different font. This would now be your first round of revisions, and then they come and say, I want to find a mid ground between the sans serif and the serif font, serious and bold. How do we find a mid ground? Then you present them with this. This would then be your second round. This would be the last round. You have put 2 rounds of revision in your invoice. This is it. So this should be the final thing. Then they might come back and say, hey, can we try some more fonts? Can we try this? Can we try it to look a bit more like Louis Vuitton? Can we try it to look a bit more like this brand? That's then coming at a price. Okay, and that is the reason why I want you to prepare for revisions, to protect yourself, basically. I feel like as designers or as like creatives, we can be quite emotional. We can be quite attached to our designs. All creatives can relate on this. And for me, I've found that it's important to not get attached. It's important to not put too much weight in one design. And I say this because like it will almost like break your heart when you hear like your client or someone say to you, I don't like that, that doesn't work. They're not trying to be rude or anything, but it feels like a stab in the heart. Like, how could you say that? That's my favorite font. It's not that deep. And I'm talking to myself. It's not that deep. Opinions are opinions for a reason. It's better that someone says, I don't like this, I like this, I like that, rather than they say, I don't know, they all look cool. That gives you absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. At the end of the day, especially if you're doing client work, it is not your design. It's very different if you're doing something for yourself. That's a different process. It's a different thought process. Let that design go, girl. This one is really obvious, but I find it really hard to do. Ask other designers for help and tips. Ask for help when you don't know. Whether you're asking YouTube for help, TikTok, Instagram, real people, just ask somebody for help. You know, especially if there's something that you don't know how to do, if there's a process that you're doing and it's taking really long, ask someone for help. At the beginning of my career, I found it really difficult to ask for help. I think especially when you work in an agency or you work in places with other people and you have a question and it pops up, like, and people are in front of you, and in a world where everything is online, this feels almost weird to instantly ask the person in front of you rather than asking your computer or asking YouTube or this, that, the other. As great as those resources are, and especially when there's not other people around, if there are people in front of you that literally do the job that you want to do, ask them. No one's ever going to be like, why would you ask me that? No one's ever going to be like that. If anything, if they don't know the answer, they're probably going to try and help you find that answer, because maybe it's something that they've also struggled with as well. I was working in Photoshop to change the format of an image from a JPEG to a TIFF, and a TIFF is basically like another file version that has more information in it, so it tends to be bigger. There's like 120 of these mofos. There's like 120 images that I need to change from JPEGs to TIFFs. I spoke to my art director about it, and she told me about this thing that you can do called making an action. And when I tell you that thing has saved my life, I don't think you understand. Like, it will cut the time not in half, it will cut the time in to 1/100th of the time it was going to take you. I want to do a whole video on actions because I'm still learning them and I'm still understanding like how exactly they work for me. But honestly, that was just like such a moment where I was like, damn, like I really just need to continue to speak and talk to people about what I do, because the knowledge is there. Okay, the knowledge is there. We complain a lot about social media and we complain about the amount of time that we spend on it. And I agree, we spend too much time on social media. However, we do spend too much time on social media. We are still on there. Use the things that you use every day to become part of that. Create ref banks all over all of your social media so that you always have, you know, your inspiration is always at like the top of your mind, because you know that you can save it to somewhere. Also, it gives more of a purpose to socials to me. Pinterest is a great example of this, for you to be able to look through a bunch of images, doom scroll as they say, and pick out things that feel, you know, aligned to this idea or aligned to that idea, and you can make different folders. And oh well, they're called pin boards, aren't they, on Pinterest? And then later on when you go back to the project, you'll be like, oh, I've already got so many pictures and references of what I want. You can do the same thing on Instagram. You could do the same thing on TikTok. I don't think TikTok has like groups yet, but I know Instagram definitely has groups. The amount of times I see things on Instagram and I'm like, oh my god, like that would be so good for this idea, and I'll screenshot it and I'm like, wait, like I could have just saved that. Not only will you also be like helping the content creator that you are watching, because saves do really well for content on things like Instagram, but you then have multiple different reference sources. References are very important. References are the base for every idea. You know, every idea comes from somewhere, you know, so having as many references as possible and then being able to whittle it down rather than like scouring for just a few is always better. It can be, you know, a picture that you saw that someone took that you want to use for your personal Instagram, and you're like, oh, like I want a picture of that when I go to Canada or wherever you go. That you can also think, oh, like that layout is amazing, I would love to do that for this brand that I'm working with. There's other websites that you can use, Pinterest, Cosmos, Arena, Same Energy. I just started using that the other day. Building reference banks I think that's definitely something that it would have been great to know. A couple of years ago, I could have been building these ref banks and been like 1,000 pictures deep by now. That is all for the video today. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, make sure that you're liking and subscribing, and leave me a comment below of any thoughts that you had about what you wish you knew before you were a designer, what you feel like something is that you have learned that you're like, yeah, how would I even survive without that? Because I'm even thinking of more now, but I feel like that's for another video. Hope you have a good day. I'm going back to work, so wish me luck. And I will see you guys in my next video.